got some others here.
So we only need 10% people. We need 20. Of 105.
We recounted them,
Oh, okay.
and there should only be 62 that are technically.
Oh, okay.
But there's quite a few on the list, because I had to voting.
That's what I wondered.
Yeah, so we clarified, we can choose to put the active list and just to keep it updated with what is written.
Oh, let's get that, yeah, because that'll connect them to it. I think it's on still. Yep. There's a few on there.
Good morning. Yep. So if you are looking at this meeting online, if you can just type in your name so we can do a roll call, and then we can get started. Okay, we are going to call this meeting to order. We're going to determine if we have a quorum. We need 13 members. We have 12 present, 1 online, and a couple more that will be present here in a few minutes. So we do have a quorum to proceed. Pastor Jordan, can you open with a prayer?
Yeah. You want me to do it in the mic or just pray? I just pray. Dear Lord, we come to you at this time now to do the business of the church and to do the thinking about both the past year but also the coming year. And we pray that you would give us wisdom and a common spirit of just seeking to do your will. We pray this now in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. We will read the minutes from the last meeting, the last annual meeting.
2 more present,
Okay.
so 3 now. 4.
Okay. Minutes from 2023 annual meeting. The meeting was held on January 21st, 2023. There's a typo in the minutes there, sorry. The meeting was called to order by Christine Henderson. Pastor Jordan opened with prayer. Quorum was determined of 16 with a combination of congregation members at church and those on the live stream. Christine read the minutes from the 2022 meeting. Minutes were accepted. Christine presented the treasurer's report, and the report was accepted. Budget was presented. Discussion on reasons for the increases in certain line items. Budget was accepted. Old business. Discussed change in the Constitution to go into effect, which included 5-member council versus 7, and meeting quarterly versus monthly. New business. Discussion on stairwell, roof, and lighting. Nominating committees were approved as follows. Amanda Cook and Jayette Young on church council. Amanda Huber and Kathy DeBolt on nominating committee. Christine Henderson and Susie Nitsky on auditing committee. Mary Steele and Arden Fear on pastoral committee. Lori Callahan and Beth Andrews on missions board. Kathy DeBolt, Susie Nitsky, and Beth Andrews on funeral committee. Meeting was closed with prayer from Pastor Jordan. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. We will move on to the treasurer's report. So the treasurer's report will be found on page 10 in the packet. Okay. So we'll just do kind of a quick rundown. The interest income, the total for the year was $600.32. The investment income for the year was $3,381.50. I'm not sure how in-depth of the treasurer's report I'm supposed to go through the meeting. I'm not sure. Anybody help? This year, we kind of did a group effort for the treasurer and the record keeping. Christine did even though she wasn't a part of the council, she was very active and she did the reconciliations and all the budget reports and all of the treasurer's reports for our meetings throughout the year. It worked well to do it that way, just a little different than it's been done before, but that's what we did this year. Are there any questions on the treasurer's report? Is there a motion to accept the treasurer's report? In a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? All opposed? Treasurer's report accepted. So moving on to the audit committee report for the year, we had Christine and Susie Nitsky. Christine, do you have anything to report from the audit?
All was in order, and I felt a little weird being reporter and the auditor.
So Christine was part of the auditing committee, but she didn't do any of the check writing for the year, so we felt that was acceptable for her to be part of the auditing committee. Okay, so we will move on to the proposed budget for 2024. You'll find that on page 11. We made just a few changes from last year. We included additional budget for pulpit supply. There has been some discussion with Pastor of potentially taking a sabbatical, so we needed to increase that budget so that if he does choose to do that, we have ample money in that budget to pay for that pulpit supply. And then we also added a media budget line, and that is going to be for Sarah, for all she does to do the live streams and the bulletins and that type of service for our congregation. So we will include that in our annual budget from now on. We did increase Pastor Jordan's housing allowance as well, so that is reflected in the budget as well as his normal increase of salary. Is there any questions on the budget?
I just had one quick question. So
Yeah.
the budget is quite a bit lower compared to the overall budget for 23, and that it's primarily because of the repairs and upkeeps. That 34,000 that was budgeted last year, can you describe a little bit about what was actually used of that?
Yes, so what we actually used of it, let's see, repairs, the 6,258 is what we actually used. So we had budgeted quite a bit of money. We were going to do the roof We just paid for the shingles. The labor will actually come out this spring when it is replaced, so that money just carried over for the labor. The other additional or figure that was included in that was the lights. We thought last year at this time that we were looking at different light fixtures, and they were quite spendy, and we actually found a very cost-effective alternative by just switching the bulbs out.
Yeah.
Was,
It was
yeah,
very
yep,
much so. I mean, and the savings on that was
significant,
thousands of dollars.
yes, yep. Other than that, I don't remember, was there anything else than the lighting and the roofing? No.
Do you mind if I give a comment from?
Yeah,
Susie Nishke said, and so then you'll have to repeat it in the mic so people can hear.
okay.
But, she says there was a decrease in donations last year. Please remind people online viewing about the online donation because she has found it very, very simple to set up as just a monthly, like,
Here, maybe I'll just have you read what she said exactly.
that's fine. So just as a reminder, Susie Nitschke said she saw there was a decrease in donations last year. So please remind everyone online viewing about the online donation because she has found it very simple to set up and it just is a monthly, it just pulls monthly and then you don't even have to remember to do it again. So.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the budget proposed? Is there a motion to accept the budget?
I move to accept the proposed budget.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Budget has been accepted. Okay, so we'll move on to committee reports. Do any of the committee members have anything specific to report for the annual meeting? Okay, so for the nominating committees, for 2024, we do need 2 church council members. I do believe that Jim Stiles is willing to renew his term. Jim, if you can just confirm online. And then are there any other nominations or volunteers to be on church council for a 3-year term beginning in 2024?
Jim confirms.
Okay. Do we have any volunteers that would be willing to be on church council?
What's that?
Susie says she'll volunteer.
Okay.
We didn't catch that.
Oh, Susie Nitsky online said she would volunteer to be on council.
My spot was a fill-in spot until somebody else wanted it, so This is Jayette. My spot was a fill-in spot until somebody else wanted it. So if there's anybody else that wanted to come on, that would be wonderful.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept Susie Nitsky and Jim Stiles for 3-year council member terms? Mary, is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? All opposed? Welcome to the council, Susie and Jim. Okay, so for the auditing committee, we have Christine Henderson and Susie. Susie is on her second term, so we need somebody to fill her spot for 2024. Are there any volunteers or nominations to be on the auditing committee for next year? Cameron? Okay. We'll just move down to all the committees and then we can vote on all of them once we're done there. The pastoral committee, we had Mary Steele and Arden Fear. Would you like to be on that committee again for 2024? Or would anybody else like to volunteer? I see you shaking your heads. Okay. Okay, so we will keep Mary Steele and Arden Fear on there. The missions board, we have Lori Callahan, we had Sharon, and then Beth Andrews. So we do need a few more people on that board. I would be willing to volunteer to be a part of the missions board. Lori, would you be able to stay on the mission? Okay. Anybody else want to be part of the missions committee?
What do you do?
Well, hopefully we can start planning more missions that our church will be active in. We haven't really done a whole lot the last handful of years, so.
I can do it.
Okay. And then the funeral committee, we have Kathy DeBolt, Susie Nitsky, and Beth Andrews. Susie, I know you're online. Would you be willing to stay on that committee? And I don't know if Kathy and Beth are online. Would anybody volunteer to be part of the funeral committee for 2024?
Susie says she'll stay on.
Okay.
I could help if one of those wants off, if Kathy or Beth wants off.
Okay. I haven't spoke to them, so I don't know.
Oh, Kathy's on.
Okay,
She says she'll stay on.
perfect. Okay. So we'll just do a quick rundown again. We have Susie and Jim for church council, Cameron and Christine for the auditing committee, Mary and Arden for the pastoral committee, Jamie, Lori, and Leanne for the missions committee, and then we have Susie, Christine, and Kathy for the funeral committee. Can I have a motion to accept those nominees?
I so move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. So we'll move on to old business. The only thing we really had was from last meeting that was still kind of hanging was the shingle replacement. The shingles have been purchased. They are here, so we're just waiting for Tyler Lugodinsky Construction to replace the roof once it gets a little warmer out. Was there any other old business to discuss? Okay, moving on to new business. Is there any new business to discuss? I didn't have anything on my list, so if somebody has something they would like to, yes.
Out front there where the bell is,
Mhm.
there's some bricks that are missing. Get some of it.
Yes, and Amanda pointed that out this summer when they were mowing, that they did see that. That's something we're gonna have Tyler look at when they're here doing the roof, to see if they can patch in those bricks, so.
I don't know if that's under new business or not, but we've got some shingles blowing off up over in this area.
Okay. We'll take a look at those. I did not notice that there were shingles blowing off.
And then I was wondering if we could possibly buy a nativity scene or something for outside at Christmas time. We are one of the churches that have nothing, and I just think it would be really nice if we could purchase a nice set.
Yes, I think that is a great idea.
Is there still one downstairs in the furnace room that we had out there that? I would like to get something new. Let's get something new. I'd like to
Yeah.
get something new that lights up and, yeah, look at the design of those are, see how beautiful that is. And I really would like to get something like that lights up.
Have you looked at all, Mary? Have you done any?
I'll help pick somebody else.
Jared and I looked a little bit, they're like,
Something I,
they're under 1,000, but you're probably gonna be over $500.
Yeah, if you get a fully lit up one, they're like 500 to 1,000, I would think, for
I think that's
Okay.
worth it though for,
the full
I
detective,
think
for
that
everything.
is too.
Yeah.
I mean, how are you talking about?
For a full detective, you said we looked at like Menards, because we talked about the church before, they're about $500 to $1,000 for, that includes the stable, or the light up stable, though.
And you may get ones for the other with the tree.
Okay.
At some point, can you summarize the?
Oh, sure. Okay, so for those of you online, there's discussion about purchasing a nativity scene for outside of the church. And I would think this would just be something that we could put on council's agenda to discuss and decide and purchase.
and I can check with Damon.
Okay. Anything else?
The trees, this spring, those trees get trimmed up. And this little guy on the front here needs to be trimmed up too.
Yes, the trees definitely need to be trimmed this spring. And we will need to replant the one
Yes.
in the front here.
I don't know who takes the Lori, are you the one that takes care of the gardens and the flowers during the summer? I do. Well, I thank you. We thank you for all that you do around here. And it's, it looks nice.
If there's no other new business to discuss,
Do you want to just mention it for anyone online too, to just take a minute, extra minute if there's something that they have to discuss?
oh, sure. If anybody online has any new business to discuss, if you can just comment, and we'll take a look right away.
Are we still in need of a second TV that I was gonna donate from Jerry's?
Yes. Yep, we'll have to order those.
Cause what I was gonna say, if there wasn't, I would use that in for the nativity.
No, I think it would be nice to have a TV upstairs and a TV downstairs for,
Well, it's coming.
yeah. Yep.
We're waiting for a really good sale.
Oh,
What about having the kids do a fundraiser for the nativity, just to have the kids do something? Get something going.
Yeah.
What about having the kids do a fundraiser for the nativity scene, so they have an active part and some ownership in that? And I think that would be wonderful.
Was there any other new business comments? Okay. Then Pastor, we're ready for your comments.
I've already I've already said a lot today, so I won't say too much. But I'll just direct you to my report. If you haven't had a chance to read it, I'm not going to read it through, so you can just read it through on your own time. But one of the things couple of things that I wanted to add. One was to Christine Henderson. I knew I was going to forget somebody, but thank you for what you did in just keeping the treasury role filled this past year, as well as to the cooks for getting the lawn mowing side of things organized with your kids, and for those who donated to help pay for that as well. That was also very helpful. And then also one of the highlights for me and the church combination, everything, is that this year the kids were all baptized at one time on June 11th. So Alice, Leo, and Rosa, and Pastor Chemizier was here to help. That was one of the highlights of the year that I didn't mention. So aside from everything else I've mentioned here in my report, the couple of things I did want to add. One has to do with confirmation. I said some words in there, but I don't know if it was right at the beginning of the year or at what point in the year, but I nudged Sarah to consider teaching confirmation. And it turns out that it was a good nudge, because the kids, they like coming, and they like being together, and I feel like it's been a great transition for Sarah, and so thank you just for the work that you've done with confirmation this year. Do you want to say anything about your experience with that and how that's been going?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Oh, they're not here. Okay. No.
Speak freely.
Yes, right. So I think what I'll just say a couple things. One, I'm very encouraged by the attendance. We have pretty much 100% attendance every week. Sometimes they bigger fund. And I brought an idea to council, and they were so supportive. So we purchased some tickets for the kids to go to a Mercy Me concert in April, which I think is a fun group activity for them to do. And I guess, I feel like there's a lot of really good things happening. But maybe it's not like always the really tangible things, if you know what I mean. Like, nobody's gonna, I don't think the kids are gonna walk out of here being able to recite the kings of the Old Testament for you. But I think they're learning how to build community, ask hard questions, reflect on their own spiritual experience, the kind of things that will hopefully serve them in their spiritual journey into the future. I would very much appreciate feedback from parents or congregation members. I always aspire to be feedback friendly, okay? I promise not to get defensive. I promise to listen, but I am my own worst critic on this thing. So I walk away and I'm just like, I don't know if I did that right. Every single Wednesday, that's what I saw. I don't know if I did that right. So I would greatly appreciate suggestions or affirmation, or whatever you want to give me to just help me kind of get a little more like grounded in what's happening and what could change and how it's going. So that's what I will say.
Well, that's great. See, you had a great little speech prepared there. The kids nowadays, I'm sure they won't be able to recite the kings of the Old Testament, but I mean, just for the heck of it, Jared, would you like to recite from what you remember from confirmation? The king? All right. Would anyone want to recite them? From when confirmation was really tough, my parents or my dad talks about the stress of confirmation when they had to learn everything and stand up in front. And I don't know who remembers any of that ever at this point in life, but what you do, well, there you go. That's awesome. Yeah. Oh, that's great. It was. But I'm excited for this next part of confirmation. I know one of Sarah's gifts is writing and communicating, articulating, things like that. And so the kids have a unique gift with them now as they prepare their statement of faith this year. I think that's a real important and valuable thing in confirmation. And so I hope that when Confirmation Sunday comes, everybody's able to attend and we have a great turnout, because it's really a chance to hear the kids share where they're at in their journey, and it's something that can go with them then. So the last thing I'll say, I wanted to just dovetail a little bit off of, you mentioned, and I had requested about asking about a sabbatical. And I wanted to say a little bit more detail about that for the whole congregation to hear and for those listening online. It was an inquiry I kind of made into the policy the church had, and there was really not a standard policy in place, but and it might be because the church has never had a pastor as long as I've been here, so sometimes it has to do with length of pastorate. That churches will have a policy in place, and it can be any number of years that they've done, and then they get a certain amount of time that they can take for a sabbatical. And so I just asked the question because I was curious, and I have heard some other experiences of pastors who've done that. We had a good friend of my brother and his wife's a pastor, come through this summer, and they were on a trip, and she was on a sabbatical. And so she told me a little bit about it, and it just kind of piqued my interest. And so, I want to thank the council for immediately sort of doing research into what that might look like and developing a potential policy or plan for how we would go about that. It's kind of like when the dog finally catches the car, though, that now it's on me to be like, okay, like what would I really want to do for a sabbatical? What would that really look like? And I've been the one lagging on that, developing that as a plan. But ultimately, it's in my mind and I'm thinking about it. And so it's the difficult thing for me is the fact of having a second job or, a primary job as a farmer. It has to fit that whole schedule. And so that's my challenge. And it's, of course, so if I get to this in the next year or two, that'll be a success, put it that way. But I'm giving it thought. And I think it's valuable. And the reason being, and this is anecdotal, but I think it's also, for me, pretty typical. At seminary, we had a group of friends, half a dozen or so, close friends, probably our closest friends, who were all doing the same degree. And I think that of that group of closest friends, other than myself, I can think of one person maybe that's still pastoring. And the reason the others aren't is because of burnout and the challenges of pastoring in the world today. A lot of the things I talked about in the sermon today. And so part of my reason for asking a sabbatical is really just to sort of address that self-care component of, trying to reestablish with myself, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? And just to be refreshed. And back on that whole anecdotal, that sort of data, it's really hard to see it. It's really hard to see these good people literally burning out, struggling with, not literally burning out, struggling with the role of pastor, and I struggle too. So, I don't always know if I'm doing if I'm doing it right, or if I'm doing what I ought to be doing, and I don't know how to measure that. Do I measure it by people's conversations that they have with me about church and about the church service and the sermon? Because if that's the case, there's no data points, really. I mean, there's occasionally somebody who mentions something. And this is not upset with you, there's not a lot of feedback. Do I measure it by church attendance? If I do, then, church attendance is declining. And so there's a lot of self-doubt that's built into that. And as a pastor, at a certain point, you just say, well, I mean, maybe no one's going to tell you, but it's maybe just time for someone else to step into the pulpit, because that's what the church needs. You're like, I don't know. But this is all just me screaming into the wind. So there's no real reason for me to know. So why do pastors get burned out? Well, they get burned out because of all those reasons and more, that they're trying to figure out what their role really is and what they're doing. And I feel it at times. And that's just me being honest. And I need the church to know that. And so if there's anything, it's more, I think, just trying to remove the vacuum component of it. So if there's ever anything good or bad that you would like to share with me, please do. I guess as a farmer, if I just farmed every year, but no one ever told me how my crops yielded, and I had, for some reason, this blank spot where I could never know what my crops yield. I could never know what the price of grain is. I could never know if I'm actually making progress. It's just a big black hole. I'd be like, God, I don't know why I keep doing this. It just feels like I'm spinning off in outer space. Well, I mean, that's in some ways what it's like. And I don't think, any of us would function very well or very long in an environment like that. And that's why pastor burnout is just an epidemic. It really is. I'm going to quote a number, and then you're going to go online and you'll be like, that's wrong, Jordan. And it probably is. So I'll just go ahead and say that. But I got this letter from the seminary at Luther Seminary, which is one of the main Lutheran seminaries here locally, St. Paul, Minnesota. But anyway, there's a lot of ELCA churches in the country, of course, but if I'm not mistaken, I am pretty sure that there's 18,000 pastor openings. And there's a fraction of pastors or people graduating from seminary. So it's just, the facts of it are that churches are closing because there's no pastors. And I don't know what to do about that. I mean, of course, it's not my job to do anything about that necessarily, but it's just I think for the wider population to know that it's just like teachers. I mean, it's not just pastors, it's teachers. There's a lot of teacher openings in the state and in the country that are not going filled. And so, churches aren't necessarily closing, but there's a lot of 3 and 4, even 5-point parishes now, which is crazy. So, I guess in that whole milieu of describing church reality in America, I mean, I just want in this annual meeting, in this more private setting, not from the pulpit, for me to just, that's my experience in it. And kind of the reason I mentioned the sabbatical was just to try and address that proactively, if that makes sense. So I'm thinking about what that looks like. I appreciate the council's support, and I would appreciate all the church's support as well as I explore maybe that sabbatical side of things. But in the meantime, I ask everybody to try and close that black hole a little bit, to try and fill that vacuum with a little bit of anything. And I would appreciate the negative as well. So don't feel like you just got to tell me good things, okay? Because typically silence or absence is just taken as negative in the absence of anything else. So not saying anything and not being in church is telling me something. That's just the facts, right? And I can't help that unless it's filled with something other than that. So let's try to reverse that train a little bit, and you know, whatever ways you as individuals want to do that, I am open to just hearing from anybody. So call me, say, hey, Jordan, let's get together, and let's visit at church a little bit. I got some things I'd like to share. It'd be good. Did you want to say something?
I was just going to respond by saying, or add on maybe to that by saying that one way in which we feel so supported is by all of you guys and your eagerness and willingness to just do anything. I mean, you participate so easily, and we're so grateful for that. There's always sure, we can do that. Yep, we can, and always so accepting, so flexible. Again, when we bring ideas, yes, we will do that. I mean, just so that is definitely a positive thing that we are feeling on a regular basis. And thank you for that.
No, very true, and thank you for saying that, because that's from day one at this church. I've said it's the flexibility of the church, number one, and allowing for a pastorate like mine existing, but then also stepping in to fill all of the gaps that undoubtedly exist is phenomenal. And so I echo that. Thank you. But okay, so otherwise, read my report if you want any more details, and I think that's it for me. Did I forget anything? Okay.
I'm just going to add a few things on the sabbatical discussion. So when he came to us as a council, we were all kind of like, well, we're not sure. We've never done this before. We did do quite a bit of research. We called larger churches in North Dakota. We reached out to LCMC. Typically, pastors every 3 to 5 years are granted a sabbatical. Pastor's been here 13 years and has not been offered that. The purpose of the sabbatical after our research was for him to do some growth on his part so that he can come back to us as a better pastor and do better for our congregation. Not saying that he's not doing well for us, but we're excited to see after the sabbatical how refreshed and changed it could be. So it's a positive thing. So don't be scared by the word. It is a positive thing. Are there any other comments? Yes.
One comment from a minister that fills in, we need a clock.
A clock?
Could not tell if you talked too long.
Oh, okay. Okay, we can discuss that at the next council meeting.
Actually, set it as a countdown.
Oh, sure. So the comment was that we need a clock in the sanctuary for those of you online, in the back. So that, okay, so the supply pastor can see what time it is and how much longer they have to talk. Okay.
I'll actually add to that. In my church where I started playing organ in high school, we had clock because we were live radio broadcast. So we had to be done in 60 minutes because we had 60 minutes of airtime. And to this day, my blood pressure goes up at 59 minutes.
Well, and the other thing too, the church I grew up in, there was somebody who sat in the back that if the time started going past, he would always raise his hand and go like this. So if somebody just wants to volunteer.
I might get excited and do it too early.
All right, then is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I so move.
A second? All those in favor? All opposed? Meeting adjourned.